Liebe Teilnehmerinnen, liebe Teilnehmer unserer Zeitkonferenz Bildung, willkommen zurück nach dieser Pause. Willkommen auch all diejenigen, die jetzt sich erst sozusagen zugeschaltet haben, die jetzt bei uns hier mitmachen. Auch Ihnen willkommen. Wir werfen jetzt einen kleinen Blick ins Ausland, und zwar nach Dänemark. Unsere Schulen hier in Deutschland hatten während der Corona-Krise ja auch deshalb doch gehörige Probleme, weil sie so schlecht auf den Fernunterricht vorbereitet waren. Das hatten wir heute Morgen auch schon gehört in dem Gespräch mit Frau Ministerin Hubig, der Präsidentin der Kultusministerkonferenz. Denn, das wissen wir heute, Heimunterricht, Wechselunterricht ist eben Digitalunterricht. Und auf diesen Digitalunterricht sind unsere Schulen bis heute nicht besonders gut vorbereitet. Ganz anders sieht es aus bei unserem Nachbarn in Dänemark. Als vor einem Jahr die internationale Studie ICELS heißt sie, herauskam, die so ein bisschen misst, wie die Schulen in verschiedenen Ländern international mit der Digitalisierung zurechtkommen. Da stand Dänemark ganz oben und Deutschland, naja, irgendwie so im unteren Mittelfeld oder bei einigen Sachen sogar ganz unten. Ich will ein paar Zahlen nennen, die darauf ein Schlaglicht werfen. In Dänemark sagten damals, das war genau vor einem Jahr, 91% der Schülerinnen und Schüler, sie würden jeden Tag, ich wiederhole jeden Tag, mit digitalen Medien in der Schule arbeiten, diese also nutzen. In Deutschland waren es 4%. Buchstäblich jede deutsche Schule, nein, jede dänische Schule verfügt heute über ein stabiles WLAN, ein stabiles Internet. Das ist in Deutschland, so die Antwort damals von den Lehrern, nur in jeder 4. Schule in Deutschland der Fall. Und während in deutschen Schulen 17% der Schüler und Lehrer mit einer sogenannten Lernplattform arbeiten, waren es in Dänemark 97%. Mittlerweile dürften die Zahlen auch für Deutschland besser sein. Aber Deutschland ist Dänemark weit hinterher, Dänemark weit voraus. Und darüber soll dieses Gespräch heute gehen, nämlich wie haben die Dänen das gemacht? Liegt es an der Politik? Liegt es am vielen Geld, was sie investiert haben? Oder ist insgesamt das Land vielleicht technikaffiner? Sind sie offener? Darüber spreche ich jetzt mit meinem Gesprächspartner, mit Jeppe Bundsgaard. Er ist Professor of Education an der Aarhus University in Kopenhagen. Er hat diese erwähnte internationale ICELS-Studie für Dänemark verantwortet und ist, glaube ich, wahrscheinlich der wichtigste Experte für dieses Thema für dänische Schulen. Er ist uns jetzt per Zoom zugeschaltet. Und ich sehe ihn noch nicht ganz. Doch, da ist er. Hallo, Herr Bundsgaard. Hallo, Jeppe Bundsgaard.
Hello, and sorry for speaking English. I do understand German, so.
Genau, das hatten wir vereinbart. Herr Bundsgaard und versteht sehr gut Deutsch, aber er kann doch besser auf Englisch antworten. Und da wir das alle hier verstehen, würde ich sagen, sei ihm das auch gestattet. Herr Bundsgaard, meine erste Frage vielleicht. Wie sind die dänischen Schulen bisher durch die Corona-Krise gekommen? Was würden Sie sagen, so ganz allgemein? Wie hat es in Dänemark mit dem Unterricht unter diesen sehr besonderen Bedingungen geklappt?
I think that you're right that we were from the outset in a very different situation than the German schools. So all Danish students wouldn't necessarily have access to a computer at home, but they would be used to using computers even in first and second grade. So on the technical side, it was, I think, and of course, when we're talking about this, it's like, of course, there are huge differences in schools in Denmark,
yes.
Of course. Yeah. But everybody would have used computers. Everybody would be somewhat used to logging into our learning management systems. Everybody would know how to access learning material and so on. But of course, they weren't used to distance learning in the sense that we had to do it from one day to another. Mm-hmm. But I think, as you say, that that was one of the positive outcomes of Denmark being very occupied with integrating ICT into learning for the last 20, even 30 years.
Mhm. Wie sieht es im Moment aus in den dänischen Schulen? Gerade jetzt sind Sie hauptsächlich im Heimunterricht oder gibt es so eine Art Wechselunterricht oder sind alle dänischen Schüler im Moment ganz normal in der Schule? Wie sieht es da aus?
Everybody is going to school as normal, except for, of course, if there's an outbreak, the school closes down or the grade closes down. So, but everybody is going to school since after the summer break. Actually, just before the summer break in June, most students were back in schools. In the beginning, with a lot of initiatives to keep distance and washing their hands and so on, and I think they're still keeping up. But most Danish students are at school right now.
Ich hatte ja einige Schulen letztes Jahr im Rahmen dieser Eishilfsstudie mal besucht in Dänemark und da hat man tatsächlich gesehen, wie groß der Unterschied ist. Also man kommt da in einen Klassenraum rein, und das war jetzt, glaube ich, eine 11. Klasse, also Oberstufe bei uns hier, ein Jahr vor dem Abitur war es genau, und alle sitzen sozusagen vor einem Laptop. So, dann war ich in einer 3. Klasse, wo teilweise schon die Schüler damit begonnen haben, kleine sozusagen Computer selbst zu bauen mit so einem mit so einer kleinen Platine und so weiter. Und da habe ich gesehen, dazwischen liegen, würde ich sagen, mindestens 10 Jahre der Entwicklung des Unterschiedes zwischen Dänemark und Deutschland. Vielleicht können Sie etwas beschreiben, Professor Bundsgaard, wo liegen die Gründe dafür, dass Dänemark uns so weit voraus ist?
It's not necessarily in front of, because I think you do a lot of clever things that we haven't done.
Okay.
So I think that this is some of my explanation, that Denmark decided there was a lot of attention to integrating ICT into Danish schools, actually back in the 70s and in the 80s. 70s, yeah. Okay. And in the 80s, there was a lot of small projects going on at local schools. In the 90s, there began to be these statewide or countrywide initiatives to find out how to integrate ICT into teaching and learning. There was politicians who wrote reports about the digital society and so on, and schools was a great part of that. So since the 90s, in the 90s, it was decided to have all schools connected to the internet before the year 2000, and that was almost achieved. In the 90s, there was a lot of attention to giving teachers what was called ICT driver's license.
Okay, eine Art Führerschein, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. What happened was a lot of teachers were taking these Führerscheins and then and then they forgot everything about it. So we had a lot of projects that spent a lot of money in also buying computers to schools and so on. And we had this sense that a lot of things cost a lot of money, but didn't actually turn out any difference.
Okay.
We had so at some point we bought computers for all 3rd graders.
Okay.
This was in the beginning of the 2000s, laptops for all 3rd graders, and and then municipalities during the 2000s started investing hugely in interactive whiteboards, and then in iPads, and now what you saw at this school was schools investing hugely in 3D printers and robots and all kinds of things. So we have had this very strong incentive to invest in hardware and in infrastructure. But I think what was the most important was what happened in 2012. The government decided to start financing teaching material, digitalized teaching materials with 50%.
Da haben wir
an online platform. The government would pay 50%, and that made the market beginning to think forward. So they started really investing in developing platforms for all subjects and for all grades, And I think that's the result of what we see today. Because so our results in 2018 were really mind-blowing in many ways, because what happened from 2013 to 18 was a huge difference. So in 13, Denmark was ahead in many ways.
At the first ISELTS
exactly.
Study.
But it really changed from 13 to 18. So I think it was 40% of all teachers that said that they used ICT daily or weekly in 13, and more than 70% in 2018. So that was just one example of a huge difference between the two circles.
Okay, jetzt habe ich verstanden, das sind sozusagen mindestens zwei Dinge, die Sie in Dänemark uns voraus haben. Einmal, Sie haben früher begonnen, sehr viel früher als in Deutschland. Sie sagten jetzt 70er Jahre, 90er Jahre. Anfang 2000 gab es diesen Führerschein, glaube ich, für alle Lehrer im ganzen Land. Das ist das eine. Und das andere ist, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe, waren es nationale Initiativen. Also es war immer sozusagen, dass das ganze Land und damit alle Schulen sich diesem Thema gewidmet haben. Ist das richtig?
Yeah, but you need to think of Denmark as a German state. We are just 6 million. Yeah, we're just 6 million people. So, but yes. I think there has both been initiatives that have grown locally, and municipalities have had this competition among them. I think that made them invest in different things, but I think we have also misspent a lot of money. So we have invested hugely in hardware that we haven't used enough.
Okay.
So I think the important change was that when we started actually understanding that hardware isn't enough. Teachers need to know how to use hardware didactically. It's not enough just to be able to use it technically.
Okay.
And they need to have teaching material, because you can't, as a teacher, plan and carry through teaching without having support from teaching material. So I think that's the most important thing.
Das ist wahrscheinlich jetzt auch der Punkt, wo die deutschen Schulen im Moment stehen, wo es jetzt eine gewisse Fortschritte gab, was die Technik angeht. Auch die Lernplattformen sind ja in Deutschland ein bisschen besser, aber die Inhalte sozusagen, die Didaktik, die Pädagogik, da sind wir noch lange nicht so weit. Ich will aber noch mal einen kleinen Schritt zurückgehen. Sie sagten immer wieder, es gab die Initiativen, landesweit diese Initiativen. Gab es dagegen denn auch, ich sage einmal, Widerstand, Resistance von Seiten der Eltern, die sagen, wir wollen keine Computer, von Seiten der Lehrer? Oder herrscht in Dänemark eine größere Offenheit gegenüber solchen Dingen, Herr Bundsgaard?
I would say that there has been, of course, there has been resistance.
Okay.
But I think that is one of the things that you should be a little happy about, that Germans haven't been so, you could say, naively positive. Yeah, because we have, as I said, wasted a lot of money on people being too enthusiastic.
Okay.
But no, I think, again, you can see in ICILS, in 2013, Danish teachers were as positive, more positive than other countries' teachers, but they were very much less negative towards ICT than other countries. And I think that's, so there's been this, we couldn't see all the downsides. And I think it has been, so being a small country without big industries, without oil or things like that, we have thought of ourselves as a country that needed to educate our students. And ICT was like the way we talked about it. You need to be ahead on the ICT front. So I think there's been mainly a positive attitude towards ICT in schools as well.
Ich glaube, das hat man mir erklärt. Das sieht man auch in anderen Bereichen der Gesellschaft. Also man macht sehr viel sozusagen online. Man kann sich, habe ich gehört, selbst scheiden lassen. A divorce is possible by computers. Und solche Dinge, die sind in Deutschland nicht ganz so vorstellbar. Und auch der Datenschutz ist, glaube ich, nicht ganz so bedeutend, sage ich mal, wie in Deutschland, wo er sehr bedeutend ist. Nun haben Sie jetzt 20, 30 Jahre diese Erfahrung gemacht. Wo würden Sie denn, Sie sind ja auch für Didaktik und Pädagogik zuständig, Wo würden Sie aus dänischer Sicht mit dieser Erfahrung nun die größte Chance eigentlich sehen? Warum machen Sie das? Was ist die Chance für die Schule?
So, from my point of view, our schools need to be more go more towards progressive teaching and learning. So more towards students doing the work, more towards collaboration, more towards inquiry-based teaching and learning, and that's, I think that's a common understanding in Denmark, that we need this to go more towards that kind of teaching. And there has been this, so people have thought that introducing ICT would be promoting more collaborative learning and so on. Okay. That didn't happen by itself, but I would still say that we need to, so that's one of the things that I think we have learned, that teaching doesn't get better just by introducing computers. Yeah. Okay. We do get more opportunities, but these opportunities need to be taken. And to a certain extent, the teaching material and so on that we have seen are like pretty traditional. But slowly people are starting to develop more progressive teaching and learning material.
Sie sagten jetzt, das haben Sie unter anderem gelernt, sozusagen one of the lessons you've learned. Etwas anderes war, das hatten Sie gesagt, dass, glaube ich, Teachers need to feel in control. Was meinen Sie damit? Also, dass die Lehrer sozusagen, ja, die Technik kontrollieren, oder was ist sozusagen diese Lernen, was war dieses Learning, dass Lehrer sozusagen das kontrollieren?
Yeah, I think if you want to go in a more progressive direction, if you want teachers to give students more control and let them do the work and do inquiry-based learning and so on, then you ask teachers to do something that's a lot more complicated. It's you lose a lot of control, and that's so. And when you have 24 students and they have all kinds of challenges and problems, and they have a lot of energy and so on, it's not easy. So you need to find out how to support teachers in having this control, even in progressive teaching and learning. And that is my point, and I think a lot of my colleagues' point is that you could use ICT for helping teachers keeping control, but still letting students do all kinds of collaborative learning and go out and investigate the internet and so on. But you need, and I think that's one of the things that we have maybe haven't been enough aware of in the field of didactics that are promoting progressive learning, that to understand the need of teachers to have the support to actually be able to perform good teaching also in this context. And my point is and that computers could be used for that.
Wir haben in Deutschland eine Diskussion darüber, ob diese ganzen sozusagen digital Kompetenzen, die digitalen Kompetenzen in einem eigenen Fach unterrichtet werden sollen oder ob dieses Ganze über die ganzen verschiedenen Fächer sozusagen verteilt werden soll. Also dass es in Mathematik, in Deutsch, in Physik jeder Lehrer sozusagen auch Digitales lernt und beibringt oder ob wir ein eigenes Fach brauchen. Ich hörte, in Dänemark haben Sie eine ähnliche Debatte. Wie wird das diskutiert? Welche Lösung haben Sie da gefunden?
Yeah, yes, I think it's a complicated question because on one side, everything is changed because of ICT. Yeah. So mathematics isn't the same. You have computers who can do lots of things that makes things easier for you. So you need to use computers for that in mathematics teaching and learning. In science, you can use data loggers and so on. In the language subjects, you can use all kinds of translating systems and so on. So you need to integrate ICT in all subjects. I think that's beyond discussion. But then there's the question of understanding technology, to understand the role of technology in society, to understand how to develop technology yourself and so on. And this is where our discussion in Denmark is at the time. Should we also integrate that into subjects, or should we make a specific subject for that? And I think we are ending up deciding to have a specific subject. A subject we call it directly translated into English, technology comprehension, Technologie Verständnis, yeah. So and this subject has we try to both teach how to program computers, how to develop all kinds of material, robots and so on, but also to have a critical perspective on the role of technology in our life and in our society. I think it's a very interesting subject, and it has come up. It's right now. It's an experiment in 46 schools. But I would really recommend going towards that. And I think the idea of not just making. So in lots of the English-speaking countries, they have computer science. So they are kind of taking the college subject and making it into a school subject. I think that's not a good idea. I think we need to think what do you need as an ordinary citizen? And there you need to understand how to program computers, but not as a computer scientist, more like how to automate things in your everyday life. But you also need to understand it in order to be able to understand how does Google actually work? What does it mean when it collects data? How can it use it? And then at the same time, you need to understand that Google is a company that makes money from selling data from that it collects from its users to other companies. So I think it's we need this complex subject, and that's why we need it to be one subject, because we need everything to be in focus at the same time,
Das heißt, in dem Fach wäre auch, das hatten Sie so ein bisschen angedeutet, und was in Deutschland sehr wichtig ist, diese kritische Perspektive, sage ich mal, gegenüber der Technik selbst, auch vielleicht, wie diese Technik manipulieren kann. Das geht in den Bereich Fake News, Nachrichten und so weiter. Das wäre auch der Ort vielleicht für so ein Fach?
Yeah, I would say so. But I would also say that some of these things should belong in what we call Danish. You would call it German. So there's a tradition in these countries, or in these subjects, also maybe in history and social sciences, for getting these understandings. But I think so that's where they will meet, and they will have to decide who will take care of this specific, very important part. And maybe it should be the technology subject, maybe it should be the others. But yes, it's a very important part of that.
Sie sagten ja, die Debatte geht jetzt ein bisschen seit einiger Zeit weg, eigentlich von der Technik bei Ihnen und eher zu den Inhalten hin. Aber auch dafür braucht es ja eine Art Weiterbildung, Fortbildung, Further Education. Wie funktioniert das? Wie werden die Lehrer sozusagen für diese Technik, aber auch die Inhalte vorbereitet, weitergebildet?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge, because even though everybody's using computers today, it's a very few people who actually understands how they work, and very few teachers who are prepared for this kind of teaching. Yes. And so we need to integrate it into teacher colleges. We need to make professional development courses for existing teachers. We need to. And this is extremely expensive, even in a small country like Denmark. So this is what we are discussing right now. And of course, what we are afraid of is that the politicians do not understand how giant the challenge is and how important. Because they understand it's important, but it's if you would introduce science into schools, the teachers would already have learned in their primary education and in further education science, but now you need to teach them something that they haven't learned at any point in their studies. So they need to. So it's a huge challenge, I think.
Was würden Sie denn sagen, sind heute noch im Unterricht im Konkreten so die Hauptprobleme? Also ich hatte ja beschrieben, ich habe verschiedene Schulen besucht und man sieht dann tatsächlich, wie alle vor ihrem Laptop da stehen. Aber auf dem Laptop ist nicht unbedingt immer das, was der Lehrer sagt, sondern da gibt es auch Spiele und Gaming und so weiter. Ist das eins der Hauptprobleme? Zumindest haben da hier in Deutschland Lehrer vor Angst. Ja, Ablenkung, Distraction. Ist das ein Problem, würden Sie sagen, wenn alle fast immer vor dem Gerät sitzen, auch im Unterricht?
Yeah, that is definitely a problem. And I think that's one of the things that changed from 13 to 18 in ICILS study, that teachers started becoming more negative or critical towards the use of ICT in schools, because they saw exactly this, that if you have computers all the time, then you also have Facebook and computer games and so on. It took us too long to acknowledge and recognize this problem. I think that's the backside of the coin, that we have been so positive towards ICT. But this is something that we are discussing very much now. But I think the problem is that it's not that we can go. Of course, there are people who say just get rid of ICT in schools, but that would be really stupid, because you need to learn all these things that involves computers. And you also we need to find ways to learn how to not. So when you are at meetings, you see people do exactly the same, and you check your phone and you use too much time on Facebook and so on. It's not just students or kids who do that. It's also adults. So we need to find ways to avoid this. And we also, if students can use so much time on playing computer games or being on Facebook, maybe it's because teaching is too boring. That could also be an explanation.
Okay, dann muss der Lehrer sich sozusagen etwas mehr anstrengen.
Or maybe give the students more control of what they are learning. So this is when I'm talking for progressive teaching, you need actually to make the students be the ones who do the work and not do all the work yourself. It's not a question of being entertaining, it's a question of actually doing something interesting.
Sehr, sehr, sehr interessant, die Antwort sozusagen. Das geht ja dann ins Pädagogische, ins Didaktische. Vielleicht noch eine andere Frage, die in Deutschland hier eine gewisse Rolle spielte, wo ich auch Dänemark interessant fand. Das ist so ein bisschen die Frage der Gerechtigkeit. Also hier in Deutschland hatte man festgestellt, dass viele eben denn doch keinen Computer hatten, so zu Hause, oder einige, so viel waren es nicht, aber vielleicht 10%, vielleicht 5%. Und jetzt ist man dabei, für alle sozusagen Computer anzuschaffen. In Dänemark, habe ich gesehen, bringen sehr viele Schüler doch ihren eigenen Computer mittlerweile mit, also dieses Bring Your Own Device. Warum haben Sie sich so entschieden, oder was haben Sie da für Erfahrungen gemacht?
So in Denmark, education is free of charge, so you cannot demand from students that they bring their own device. If they haven't got one, the schools shall give them one. So we have tried many different solutions, and the problem, if you buy computers for all students, then you also have it's your responsibility to keep them updated and so on. So and schools have. And students at the same time, they do have a computer at home, so why not just make them bring that one with them? So we have had many different solutions, and I'm not sure we have found the right one, but I think it depends on the school and the situation and all kinds of things. But a lot of schools have this bring your own device, but students who cannot afford computers get one from school.
Was würden Sie sagen, wie viele machen, also jetzt, wenn Sie alle Schüler nehmen, haben Bring Your Own Device, also bringen den Computer mit in die Schule? Prozentsatz, 10%, 50%, 80%, was vermuten Sie?
I guess I would be able to see that in the ICILS report. I didn't had special attention to that, but it's a lot. It's like 30-40% of schools, I think, that has that today. It has changed a lot in recent years.
Sehr gut. Vielleicht die letzte Frage. Sie hatten es immer angedeutet, Dänemark hat einen sehr langen Weg gegangen, hat auch Fehler gemacht, wie ich festgestellt habe. Sie sagten aber, Deutschland hätte auch eine Chance und machen einiges richtig. Vielleicht, was wären noch mal die Hinweise, die Tipps abschließend für deutsche Schulen, für deutsche Lehrer, für Deutschland aus Dänemark?
So my tips, my recommendations would be to not focus mainly on technology, but to focus on the problem is you need to focus on a lot of things at the same time. So we need the infrastructure. We had a lot of problem with infrastructure, that there weren't power plugs enough in schools and all kinds of crazy things that didn't work. The Wi-Fi didn't work and so on. You need infrastructure. You need to have the hardware, of course, but especially you need teachers to be able to teach, and that they need competences, but mainly they need teaching material. And you need to have organizations that support their collaboration around being able to teach using ICT. So it's a professional development. So we need courses, of course, but these courses shouldn't be about technology so much. They should be about teaching with technology. Didactics needs to come first. And I think that was one of the mistakes we did like many times. So people were always thinking that first we take the technology and then the teachers can do the didactics, but that didn't work like that. So we had we invested hugely in whiteboards, interactive whiteboards. You know, I don't know if you remember them, but they were never used for didactic means. They were just used like a projector or for the students to play music videos in their breaks, or like just ordinary things they could pin things up on. So you need to do a lot of things at the same time. That's my recommendation.
Okay, Jeppe Bundsgaard, vielen, vielen Dank für dieses tolle Gespräch, auch selbstkritische Gespräch, was man aus Dänemark für Deutschland lernen kann. Am Ende kommt es immer wieder auf die Inhalte an, und wenn die Inhalte im Vordergrund stehen, dann bietet diese digitale Technik teilweise auch, das haben wir in Dänemark gesehen, die Möglichkeit, sozusagen die Schüler mehr selbst arbeiten zu lassen, zu einem anderen didaktischen und pädagogischen Unterricht zu kommen.